In response to the high demand in Cambodia, there is an abundance of shopping malls opening and many more malls under construction that are expected to be finished in a few more years. One particular shopping mall on the rise in Phnom Penh is CHIP MONG Noro Mall, which is a subsidiary of CHIP MONG Group. The growth of shopping malls will contribute greatly to the boosting of the economy, the business sector, and the way people live their lives. As the city grows, more malls are being constructed, resulting in traditional sellers and businessmen being influenced to have their business at shopping malls. Today, we are interviewing special guest Michael Vong, shopping mall director of CHIP MONG. What is the change of consumer behavior that leads to the rise of shopping malls in Cambodia? Why has CHIP MONG decided to invest in the shopping mall industry?
My name is Michael Vong. I am Malaysian. I've been in this business, the shopping mall business and retail in particular, for the past 15 years. More than 2 years in Cambodia, 3 years in Myanmar, and 4 years Vietnam, and also in Malaysia as well. And right now, I am director shopping malls for CHIP MONG Retail.
Can you tell us what you see in the changes in the Cambodian consumer market?
Well, to answer that question, we look at two things. One is the demographics of the country, and the second thing is the economic situation of the country. When we look at the population size, which is about 16.5 million, 16.7 million people, and 60% of this population is below 30 years old, which means the country is a very young country. And young people have got a certain traits which we retailers have to recognize if we want to be able to meet the expectations of whatever products or services that we want to sell. Now, 16.7 million may not seem like a lot of people, even though it's growing at about 1.4, 1.5% a month, but eventually we are going to get there. So what's happening is, from the economic point of view, this country is growing at the rate of about 7% a year, which is one of the fastest growing in the region, comparable to Vietnam, for instance. And that gives rise to a situation where you have a young consumer base and you have got the higher disposable income that is growing, makes it just ripe for retail to come in. So when we look at this young population, because we know when we talk to the young people, they are quite different from the older generations like myself. They are more confident, they have better education, they are more individualistic, and they have a lot more emphasis on living life. So when we look at this, we see that there is this opportunity. Someone will need to come in and fill this need. And this is the scenario which is very advantageous to Cambodia. In the other markets, like in Vietnam and in Myanmar, they've gone through this. In Kuala Lumpur, in Singapore, they've gone through this curve. But in Cambodia, it is just happening. So this is a time when retail is going to make such an impact for this country.
What do you think of the investment in shopping malls in Cambodia, and what potential has CHIP MONG seen for the company to invest in this business?
Well, from a market point of view, modern trade, shopping malls, supermarkets, they are part of the modern trade, as opposed to the traditional trade, which is the wet markets and the shops in the streets there. Modern trade is still only at 30%. So you can see that there is a lot of potential for this growth there. With this rate of urbanization, which means people are moving from the countryside to come to live in the towns, in the cities. And it's not a small figure. We're talking about 20% urbanization rate every year. People are coming in from the cities, buying up properties, coming from the towns, coming to the cities, buying up houses. And these people have got disposable income to spend. As a retailer, CHIP MONG will look at their needs or predict their needs and try to offer products that they will want to acquire. What we call the rise of proximity retailing. In the past, when we talk about shopping, you just go to a shop in the streets there, you buy a product, and then you get on to your car or motorcycle and you go to another shop and buy something else, and then you go to the wet market, you have to buy yet another thing else. The concept of proximity shopping is that you have all these under one roof. So which is what the shopping mall offers. So what it means is for a visitor to the mall, he can get almost everything that he wants at one stop. Under one roof, just park your car or a motorcycle, you can do all your shopping once and leave. And this is where the potential is. Now, there are not a lot of shopping malls in this country yet. The ones that we have seen, like Soria Mall, has been around for the past 10, 11 years. But people here, the young generation, they're all looking for new formats, new retailing formats that bring excitement to that shopping experience. So when we look at the competitor malls, to us, the competitor malls in the country here, you have got the Aeon malls, the Japanese malls, and you have got some of the local malls, you've got the Exchange Square. These are the ones that create this renewed interest for the young people in shopping, and which is good. Now, when you see that the disposable income is growing, what it really means is that the middle income segment is also growing, and which is the most important part in the economy, because it's the middle income segment that drives retail in any market. And because of that, Chip Mong sees that there's a gap where we are now, and we are in a position to plug it. Plug it by not just offering anything to anybody, but with a very focused direction and strategy. Who are the people that we want to target? Remembering that in the city of Phnom Penh, there are only 2 million people. That's not a lot. 2 million people, and you have got 8 to 10 shopping malls. It's good for the consumers, but it's not really good for mall operators. So we have got to be very focused on what we want to communicate, where the positioning of the mall is, what kind of products that we offer. Okay, and we do that through the positioning messages. We do that through our marketing activities, and people who come to Chip Mong malls there will come in for a specific reason, which is in line with the segment that we are targeting. The other opportunities are, of course, as the marketplace become more competitive, not everybody is going to make it. Some of them will fail, and this is also where the opportunities for M&A exist, mergers and acquisition. Where Chip Mong, as a developer, there are opportunities for us to acquire new assets as part of that expansion plan, and that is also one of the potentials there. Because it's quite limited in terms of the market size, the opportunities for partnerships, joint business programs with tenants. For example, with Chip Mong, we work very closely with Legend as a cinema operator. So everywhere that we go, Legend will be with us. And that helps us to build a partnership based on the common target market that we are after.
Yeah, that is great. So what is the strategy for Chip Mong retailer to cater to the needs of the people residing in different locations?
Well, it's not so much catered to the needs of the people in all these different locations. It is more like, how do we meet the needs of the catchment area, the people who live in the catchment area of the malls? Because studies have shown that people very seldom drive across the city to just visit a mall. Well, they do, maybe once a month, but people will usually shop at a place near where they live. So this is what we call the catchment area. So wherever we put we build a mall, we study about the demographics within the catchment area, their needs and their wants, and we develop what we call a tenancy plan, a category mix. Example, if we have a shopping mall within an area where you have schools and universities, as compared to a shopping mall in the city, like in Norodom Boulevard, the mix is different because you've got different people and you've got different expectations of a mall in that people. In an area where you have schools and where you have universities, you see the catchment mainly of students who hasn't got a lot in disposable income. The needs are quite straightforward, for food, for entertainment, not very high fashion, affordable clothing, affordable products basically. But in the city, you have the working class, you have the young families, they have got a different kind of priorities that we look for. So based on this knowledge of the catchment area, we will put up this mix, this tenancy mix, and it's very important for us to get it right. Because if we got a wrong tenant in a mall, that tenant will not be able to sustain its business because we are targeting the wrong people for him. And when we develop this mix, we would filter through a list of tenants, trying to identify the tenant's profile customer to see whether it matches the mall's profile. If there's a match, then the chances of sustainability is higher. When we got the right mix, we will have a destination, a shopping destination, where the shoppers will come in and say, okay, today I will come and dine in this restaurant. Tomorrow I can still come to this mall, but there is a second restaurant which offers a different kind of food, but about the same price point, okay, which also perhaps has got the taste that I like. So this is the key to being competitive in the market. When you see some malls where the intention is just to fill up space, the danger is if you've got the wrong tenant, the tenant will exit because there's not enough business, they will exit. And when they exit, you have what we call the income gap, because when there's no tenant, there's no rent. And because there is a vacant space now, we have to start to look for a new tenant to replace it, and we lose 2 to 3 months, maybe even 4, before the replacement tenant starts to trade, and when we start to collect a rent. So you have a gap of 4 months where you have got no rent. So this is why the tenancy mix is very important. And our strategy is that the study of the catchment area is very important so that we don't get it wrong. Once we get it right, we have got to continue to sustain it by offering the products that this catchment is looking for, the right pricing, the right customer service, the right conveniences and all this other things.
Right, so it sounds like convenience and interest of the consumer. What is the outlook for Chip Mong retail in the next 3 to 5 years?
We've done the studies, and we know who is in the horizon, in competitor malls coming up. We know that this place is going to be quite crowded with malls. And it's good to know this because then we can start to prepare now before that happens. In the next 3 to 5 years, you will see that retail space is going to increase by 300%. That is 3 times what we have today. And because of that supply, there's going to be stress on rent levels. As a landlord, our income comes from collection of rent. So when there's an oversupply situation, rent have to come down. It's good for the tenants, but not so good for the developers. Okay, but we have to accept that because that's the way it's going to be. So when the rent comes down, we need to provide what we call value-added services. So the tenancy mix is also important because now we can tell the tenant that because of this mix, we are also bringing a customer for your neighbor who is also a potential customer of yours, right? Because we are all talking about the same mix here. This helps the tenants to say that, okay, people are not just coming to this mall because of my shop, and they cannot eat the same food like every day. If I'm the only shop in this mall, the customer will come maybe only once a month. And the potential of growth in the tenant's business is limited by that frequency of the visit. But if you've got similar F&B selling different products, the chances of that return rate would be much higher. And this is what we are all looking for. The other thing is, because we are CHIP Mong, we also work very closely with CHIP Mong Land. CHIP Mong Land, as you know, is a very prestigious residential developer. And in each of these CHIP Mong Land projects, we have a mall there. So the mall is a value add for the buyers of these homes of CHIP Mong Land. The buyers of these homes is a value add to the mall, because these are the customers that the mall would be targeting. And as you know, CHIP Mong Land buyers are from the middle income to upper middle income group, which means they're quite sophisticated, in terms of disposable income, in terms of what they want, in terms of trending, they are there. As a mall, we need to keep up with their needs. So that mix that we started with, maybe today, will need to be reviewed in the next 2 years, because people's behavioral pattern changes. People's needs change. So what needs to change is perhaps the mix of tenants. Some tenants may not be able to keep up as much as the consumer trend is. So we need to make a decision to replace these tenants with the brands that are in demand there. Now in Cambodia, that pool of tenants is not very big. If you look at markets like Bangkok, with so many shopping malls, they are always constantly replacing tenants that seem to have fallen off because of demand from the consumers. They replace it with another tenant who fills in that gap here. In Phnom Penh, not so many. Our strategy is to continue to engage with brands within the region, brands from Singapore, from Thailand, from Taiwan, from China as well, so that this new brand bring excitement, continual excitement to the people within the catchment. One of the challenges of managing a mall is keeping operating costs down. So operating costs is something we all have to deal with. Cost of utilities, cost of wages. The tenant has got the same cost. Okay? Now, if the mall does not manage this well, these costs will be passed on to the tenants, yes, which increases a burden. It becomes a bigger burden for the tenants there. So for CHIP Mong, one of our priorities is making sure that we use the most updated technological systems and equipment to manage costs. For instance, we look at training, multi-skilled staff, okay, multitask staff, to keep the cost of HR manageable. We use systems to maximize productivity in use of electricity consumption, for instance. We track this on a regular basis so that whatever the cost is covered by what we charge to the tenant as a service fee.